The first ever mobile sports book opens in the Valley of the Sun at the Footprint Center downtown. What it means for the Suns, what it means for the Valley, and a little bit more on the Kyler Murray, Devin Booker maturation process. Can Kyler find the magic that we just saw Book find? All of it coming up next here on Locked On Phoenix Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen. I cover the Suns for SB Nation as well as Dime Magazine, and you can find me here every single day on the Locked On Suns podcast, coming to you as a credentialed media member. Doesn't mean much right now, of course. We're in the sights of the preseason of training camp, but not quite there yet. And today actually did bring some news, so I want to get into that. The sportsbook stuff, FanDuel Sportsbook, in person, one of the only ones. I'll catch you up on what exactly happened today. If you saw Trey Wingo and JB Smoove out in downtown Phoenix and were wondering what on earth was happening, I will fill you in. And then I'll obviously talk a little bit about what it means for the Suns. They are the first. What it means for Valley sports fans, what it means for all of us here. And then to close the show as we get ready for kickoff of the NFL, a segment where I usually would bring on Kevin Zimmerman of Arizona Sports, but I decided to not have to call upon him this time, so I'll do it solo. But it's interesting to look at Kyler Murray and Devin Booker in conjunction, in parallel, because they are both so young. They are sort of these young faces of this franchise that haven't been here in the Valley. We haven't had players like them, and we just saw Book really, really take a leap, of course, as a team player. Will we see that from Kyler? So that'll be the end of the show today. But let's talk about this betting stuff. So again, just for those who might not be incredibly familiar, Arizona in the spring launched, passed the bill, became law, a legalization of betting, of sports gambling. They granted 20 licenses, 10 of which are required to be on indigenous land, on reservations, 10 of which are at sports stadiums, which is very unique. If you were wondering, okay, I know I can go on an app now, but why on earth are all these popping up at the stadiums themselves? That is the way that we decided to do it here. I don't, off the top of my head, necessarily understand the thinking, because I understand, in some ways you're able to leverage the partnerships of the sports organizations themselves. You're obviously able to get greater buy-in if the sports teams, which already have so much spending power and cultural influence in the Valley, are the ones that are able to sort of help get it passed, right? Use that leverage. What I don't necessarily get, I guess one other reason for doing it that way is people already associate gambling with sports. FanDuel, for instance, already a sponsor of the Suns. So, some of these things do make sense. Some of them don't. Namely, the don't part is, why couldn't a sports team have been allowed to? Of course, any organization that wants to could have been allowed to invest and partner and help run a sports book. We don't necessarily need it to be at the actual stadium. So in that way, I don't necessarily get it. But at the same time, they are these huge venues. They are places where people are already going in en masse and are already associated with sports once again. So where else would we really have put them? Casinos out on Indian land, and obviously these big stadiums are likely to be some of the only places that really could have fit them. So I get it from that standpoint as well. But back when that bill had become law in the spring, and they really put a gas pedal down in terms of speed on that thing, that it was going to go into effect in time for NFL kickoff today. What I had heard from one of the people very involved with passing it, from a source from many moons ago working on some politics reporting, he had told me that it was unanimously supported. I mean, relatively speaking, he was having a hard time finding anybody who wasn't okay with it because of the tax implications. I saw Ryan Randazzo over at the Arizona Republic's been doing a great job covering this stuff, and he said Nevada, for instance, will make about 5% of the total bets placed in their sports books there. And that's huge. If you think 5% of how much money is going to pass through some of these places, 5% is huge. And so in that way, and it's going to be spread out, right? So there will, I imagine, I'm almost positive that there is a city component to that, how that tax works, just like there would be in Las Vegas. And the ability to spread that out is very valuable as well in terms of lawmakers passing it. It's across multiple districts. It's not something that just benefits downtown Phoenix, right? It's Glendale, it's downtown. It can be wherever the Coyotes end up in Tempe. They have not announced theirs, which for obvious reasons, they don't know where they're going to play. And then, of course, all of these different areas of Indian land. So very, very well supported. Anyone who follows local politics will know that if Jeff Winninger and Doug Ducey are taking a picture with Reginald Bowling, then things are very kosher between the two sides of the aisle. So this was all makes sense. It's now in place, and the Suns were the team to go ahead and launch their actual book first. And that's where things might get a little bit tricky again. They opened the actual physical building today for the launch. They were the only one to do so of the sports teams, and it doesn't look like any of the others are going to be opening anytime soon. I would imagine the Cardinals thing is, if I don't think it's even really going to be possible to open it up while the season is happening, because of the construction you would have to do and unveiling it, during when there's not a game versus when there is a game. I doubt that's happening. The Diamondbacks one doesn't seem to be coming along. I'm sure they'll wait till the offseason at this point. But the Suns are in this unique spot where they already had this partnership with FanDuel. They already had the renovations going, and they're going to go ahead and do this. They also have a partnership with the Mercury Bally. So that is a unique situation. I don't exactly know what that will look like, because their agreement was humongous. First of all, I could do a whole episode about how much that deal means to women's sports, women's basketball, the WNBA. One of the biggest sponsorship partnership deals with a corporate entity and a women's sports team ever. But that book won't be at the Footprint Center, which is a very interesting part of this. But for all intents and purposes, the Suns are the first. They have opened this book. You can go there. They had a free event with Trey Wingo, with Richard Jefferson, with Channing Frye, and then obviously a bunch of politicians. So very, very cool. It's going to be big. I mean, it's going to be, I think we're all going to find ourselves at these buildings way more than we ever thought we would. That's really the big thing that I keep thinking is, like, we're going to be walking into these arenas and stadiums to just lounge around at a sports book. Right now, there's people in the Valley, it could stay the case, of course. Not everybody's going to be flocking to a sports book. It's a certain type of person. But there are people who have never been to a stadium here, who have never been to a game, either because financially that's not makes sense for them, or they're just not really live sports people. Maybe they are gamblers. There's plenty of people who don't care much for the rooting of the sports, but would love to bet on it. Maybe they'll find their way here. It'll just be very fascinating to be at these places for events that are not just concerts and games. The other part that, to me, within that is a little bit cool is, well, first of all, we're the 11th state, I believe, for FanDuel. I think there may be more places where it's legal, but very few still, even though it has been stated from up high, on high, the Supreme Court, that it is allowed nationwide. Not every state has gotten their ducks in a row there. So that's very cool to be one of the only. You hear all these FanDuel and DraftKings sponsorship ads at this point, and BetOnline, our own partner, and you can feel pretty confident that you'll be A-okay. At the same time, the other part to me that's interesting, and it's probably just a little bit nerdy. Again, many of you, I've said this before on the show, I'm sure. I did my undergraduate thesis on stadium financing, and inevitably you get to a point where you're just looking point blank, what is the value of these stadiums to the public? And all too often, these places just do not have any public good outside of they have a football game in them every Sunday and a few concerts a year. And at the end of the day, the amount of land that they're taking up, the amount of money that goes into them, you could argue it's not necessarily worth all of that. So they're very often don't make their own money back. People will go into debt who tried to pay for them, whether it's the owners or the city or private companies, et cetera. So the fact that we're having this situation where we're going to be there more, money can be spent there, and they will be open all year long for something outside of hosting live events. It opens up a world of possibilities. This is something the Suns already were thinking along the lines of when it came to their practice facility. You'll remember the agreement to build the hotel and restaurants with Fox at the same time. I think that got a little bit disrupted because of COVID. They're definitely doing construction over there, but very innovative, very, very creative way to be doing this, where I will go to the Suns arena, not just to watch Devin Booker shoot and the Suns to win a game, but I can also just go there as a part of my everyday life. That doesn't happen right now. I don't know if we necessarily can grasp yet how unique that is, but that is definitely a huge part of this. I will also talk in a second about how it pertains to the Suns, what it means for the Suns. I'll also tell you my Trey Wingo story, very brief but very funny, so you can be on the way for that. First, though, a quick word from BetOnline.ag. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, as well as the #1 spot for all the pro and college football action all fall long. The opening day super promo has come and gone. I am recording this during Cowboys-Bucks, so apologies to all of you. Hopefully you took advantage, but that's not the end of it. First of all, make an account at betonline.ag. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to get a 100% welcome bonus. Doubling your money. That is right. They are matching that first deposit. In addition, when you sign up, so the 100% welcome bonus is when you make your first deposit. When you sign up, use the promo code NFL100. So that's NFL100 when you sign up, locked on when you make your first deposit. And what that NFL100 code will do will allow you to get refunded on your opening bet for the NFL season up to $25. In addition, the internet's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest are both open now. Check those out. Make BetOnline your one-stop shop all football season long. They're the best place to make a bet. They always have been, but during football season, they are ratcheting it up, making it even more fun to be a sports fan. So make it an everyday thing. Download the app, make that account, put that little bit of first money in, let the bonuses roll in, and enjoy. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Today's show also brought to you by DirecTV. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you watch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You've got sports highlights going on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login just for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no more of that old scenario, and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there is no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Okay, a little bit more on the sports gambling stuff. Then we'll get into Booker versus Murray. I think it's interesting. I think you guys do too. And I'm thinking about the Cardinals a lot. So look, it's one of those days where we're going to go off the beaten path a little bit. But the Suns did make a lot of news with this FanDuel thing. So very much worth talking about. Again, the first there's been gambling in Arizona before because of the casinos, but there has never been a sports book. The Suns now have one in their building, and it is pretty from what I've seen. Very, very nice looking. Would not hate spending an afternoon there. I don't really know how I feel about that yet in terms of going to the place where I cover games and then kicking back and making a fool of myself. We'll have to see how that goes. But my Trey Wingo story I want to get to before I talk about the impact on the Suns. I work at ASU. I know I've said that. And I work at the football stadium. So I work on it's basically the 8th floor. You take 2 different elevators, equivalent to the 8th floor. You're at basically the upper deck. And I work like if you were to pee at the upper deck, go to the bathroom, I'm like behind that, up in a office building that looks east toward the new hockey and everything arena that they're building, and obviously over toward the football practice bubble and all that stuff. So I'm going up the elevator to get to my office this morning, and a very, very smooth-looking, handsome gentleman, tall, walks in, and I know I recognize him. Not only do I know I recognize him, but I know I was on Twitter earlier in the day and saw him in a picture out and about at some of these gambling things. So I'm like, okay, gambling, he must maybe like the CEO of FanDuel, whatever. Then another football player from ASU walks in because my entrance is basically the athletic football training center office building. And that football player directs this person to Herm Edwards' office. And at that point, I'm like, okay, it's not, Herm Edwards has no reason to be talking to the CEO of Caesars or something. So what is happening here? Obviously, you know by now, because I said the story was about Trey Wingo, that this person was Trey Wingo. He was with his wife. He was very nice. He pushed the button for me on the elevator. We didn't say much to each other. He got off on the floor that I am not supposed to get off on to go look and find the office of Herm Edwards, meet with him, do their whole nine. Obviously, they worked together for quite a long time over at ESPN. And I leave, whatever, like 5 hours later, it hits me because I see a picture again, or I don't know what reminded me. That is Trey Wingo. And I felt like a complete idiot because we've all seen that man on TV so many times. And obviously, him being a nice guy, him, bringing his wife along on his travels, all very good. What that brings me to is, why on God's green earth was Trey Wingo the front man for these gambling unveilings in the Valley today? If you have an answer, please in the comments below or at lockedonphxsuns, please tell me why this man was here and doing all of these events. JB Smoove was also here from Curb Your Enthusiasm and everything else. Just a very, very bizarre series of photos to see Doug Ducey with JB Smoove, with Channing Frye, with Trey Wingo, and all of these wealthy stakeholders and all that. It was just a bizarre thing. That brings me to, speaking of wealthy people, how I think this will impact the Suns. An obvious aspect of this is the money's going to the sports teams. I mean, I don't really know if I would imagine, like a casino, part of the money that you bet will go to the Suns, I think. Which is very strange. I don't necessarily know why. That just feels like an awkward thing financially. The amount of in bed that some of these organizations are at this point feels strange to me. But nevertheless, that part is very clear. They're going to be all the stuff I was saying about people being in these buildings. Well, you're going to be in the Suns building, and they can charge you for a soda. They can charge you for a beer. FanDuel will make a cut of that money. Obviously, the Suns will make a cut of that money. The state and city will make a cut of that money, just like any other place. You go to a game, you buy whatever at the concessions, you're paying sales tax. That money goes to Pepsi. That money goes. It's the same, but it's just another revenue stream. But it's a exponentially bigger revenue stream than sodas at the game, right? So that is inarguable that it will make that impact. I don't really know, and we'll have to see what the money looks like. And I don't expect a dramatic change necessarily. And it's hard to predict and project because this is such a unique setup. But it made me think all of this sports news and the Cardinals starting, the Suns, this thing happening, and obviously me doing this show. And then I, on top of all of that, got in the car this morning, listened to an interview with Derek Hall on Bickley and Murata, who have taken over the mornings. Very, very cool for them. I listened to that, and I was yelling at myself, shouting at myself, really shouting at Derek Hall on the radio. Just, we are not a small market, not we Diamondbacks, we this city. Not a small market. We are a top 5 population in the country. I understand. I know all of you are like, wow, that he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is a suburban sprawl. This is that. This is whatever. No, I don't care. We are a huge city. It shouldn't matter. We have enough people where we could have 2 basketball teams, people-wise. I mean, I don't really think that, but Chicago has 2 baseball teams, right? I mean, Philadelphia has everything under the sun. I understand. We have plenty. But my point is, I hope that this can be a way where sports teams are able to make more money and be more of a function to people in the community, and that can trickle down to being not so cheap. Really, that's the way I'm going to put it. Not to say the Suns are cheap. I don't think that they cheaped out this offseason, clearly. You look back to 2010, they paid the luxury tax. I do just feel like we obviously know that Robert Sarver has had a proclivity for saving when he can. We know that all across the Valley, there is very much not a green light to pay gobs of money for stuff for sports teams. So I hope that can change. That's really my long-term outlook. I'm sure there's political and economic ramifications. We'll all get nerdy about that if we want to as a sports story, that to me is what I'm going to look for. Does it bring people in? Does it become a part of people's lives? And does it make the teams more money in a noticeable and tangible way? Very, very much too early to see. I'm excited to get over there, though. I'm hopeful that all the rest of them can open soon. I just like the idea. I like Vegas. I like that kind of thing. I want to just go check it out. Wasn't able to get over there today because I was at work, but soon. Let's talk about the Cardinals a little bit more here on that note, on the note of peculiar financial decisions and the like. We'll do that, though, right after a quick break to talk about Rock Auto. You know the deal. You walk into a dealership, you walk into a retail store, you need a part for your car, need it desperately. It's not, casual. You really need it. And TBD on whether you're going to get it, how cheap it might be, and what it's going to look like. So Rock Auto solves that problem. They literally cut out all those steps because it is an online platform they've been serving do-it-yourselfers like me and you for over 20 years online. They don't require an account, let alone a subscription to log in. All you need to do is go to rockauto.com, type in your car or truck name, scroll down to the part that you need, click purchase, and it's at your door in days. It's really that easy. I've ordered several things from Rock Auto. Never been disappointed in the quality or the speed or the price. It really is the real deal. I'm sure you've been seeing Rock Auto everywhere. You've been hearing about them on this show for months, if not years at this point. And that's because they rock. They really are special. They do it right. So if you need something, if you feel like you might need something, if you just need the maintenance, which we all don't do often enough, go to rockauto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Today's show also brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. My favorite protein bar. Built Bar likes to call themselves the healthiest candy bar ever, and it's not hard to see why. They are covered in 100% chocolate. They are soft and easy to chew, and they have about the most delicious flavors you will ever come across. No more of that kind of gross, like some of the flavors don't even sound good. It'll be like vanilla bark or something. It's just gross, some of the ones that you see. Built Bar, not like that at all. You got cookies and cream. You got salted caramel. You got coconut, mint brownie, these delicious sounding flavors, and they live up to their billing, all while not bogging you down whatsoever. Only 180 calories, only 5 grams of sugar, but packed with 17 to 18 grams of protein in every single one. So try a new flavor, try your old favorite, whatever it might be. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay, let's close out the show here with a little bit on the Cardinals and the Suns. Comparisons might seem crazy, might seem like Cardinals are not going to do what the Suns just did. And I hear you. I hear you completely. I agree with you. And I think I'm going to have Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals on next week. We'll have a game in the books at that point, so it'll be hopefully just as rosy, but TBD. I'm not sure about that secondary against the Titans offense, really just in general, the Cardinals defense against the Titans offense. I may not sleep well on Saturday, but we will have Alex on to dive a little bit deeper into this. But really the thing I want to look at today that pertains to the Suns even more is, what does it take? What did we see from Devin Booker that has been so hard in the NBA for other players, but be so hard for Kyler Murray? Because I think that there's an interesting part of all of this where you would think the sports are very different, obviously, but it doesn't stand to reason that a quarterback, a number 1 overall pick quarterback with the type of talent that Kyler Murray has, would make less change during his quote-unquote breakout, which for NFL players is early in their careers because they're already much older, whereas Booker, it was sort of the past couple of years, I would say 2019-20 with the bubble performance and everything else was really his breakout. And the difference was very, very noticeable when he stepped up his game. He's in the finals doing all of this. He's making a huge impact. I get the basketball, one player can make a world of difference, but in football, a quarterback can make a world of difference. So every time we've done this check-in, which has been every 6 or so months for almost the whole time I've been doing this podcast since November of 2017, well, I guess Kyler came a short while later, came a while later, I'm realizing now. So ever since Kyler got drafted, obviously, is when we've done this, they seemed pretty neck and neck, the two of them. It was like, all right, they're both young, they're both progressing, we'll see what it looks like. They're getting help, they're getting new coach. And in Kyler's case, the coach came with, but was thought to be a pretty big upgrade. For Booker, it was obviously Monty Williams finally being added to the mix. And then last year, well, really before the NFL season last year, we saw the bubble. Booker was blowing up. We did a conversation with Kevin Zimmerman back then, basically looking at, well, what in the world? Like, why? How did it happen for Booker first? And is it going to happen for Kyler? We both kind of thought yes. We were like, yeah, what Booker just did was really special, but Kyler's going to do something even more special right now. And he did. Obviously, those first 8 or 9 games were very special. And then you could say he got injured. I don't know. I mean, we don't know. And now these questions of like, is he dedicated to the game? Is he, learning at the right rate? And on and on and on. And that is really what I think the separation is, because you can say basketball versus football. You can say, obviously Chris Paul. You could even make the very well arguable point that Monty Williams versus Cliff Kingsbury is a little lopsided. I wouldn't disagree with you on any of that. But I think more so than anything else, what you have to appreciate about Devin Booker when it comes to the comparison between those two guys is that Devin Booker, for everything going on around, for all of the change, for even if you think from the bubble to the finals, Chris Paul, I mean, it's obvious that guy was a huge help for the team. Nobody's denying that. He got MVP votes. But the adjustment, I don't think we talk about even that part enough, specifically as it pertains to Booker, because, oh, wow, what a lifesaver Paul was for Booker's career. And now Booker's not going to demand a trade. All these narratives were that formed. But the actual adjustment and the ability to change your game and to stay great, that's humongous. And it is so evidentiary of the way that Devin Booker's always handled himself. And that is what has always made him stand out. That is what has always made him special. He's not the best athlete in the NBA. He's certainly proven himself, unfortunately, to not be the best shooter in the NBA compared to what we thought. Not the best passer, very much not the best defender. You wouldn't look at Devin Booker and say anything individually about his game. Maybe his mid-range shot is elite. At the very, very best. Like, you wouldn't say he's the best person in the NBA at this or that or the other thing. But what you can look at him and say is he can do everything through sheer force of will and work and intelligence. And he has developed that. That happened because of him. And that happened in spite of everything else. What Kyler doesn't have right now is that factor. I don't know enough to question, does he love it? Does he care? But you can tell from the results, even if you include the injury, great quarterbacks through 2 seasons, you see it more than you've seen it with Kyler, even if you count the injuries into consideration. We knew with Booker, even on a terrible team, there were stands after year 2 who felt like that guy is going to be an all-star, if not more, in the NBA, and he will make this team great if they can put even a semblance of a crew around him. Now, there are a lot of excuses to make for Kyler. Again, that injury last season, the head coaching inconsistencies, the fact that maybe they haven't. I mean, you could argue they have not put a semblance of a team around Kyler Murray with the Arizona Cardinals. But that, to me, when I make the comparison now, why has Devin Booker just soared past Kyler as we get ready to kick off Kyler's 3rd season? It's because Devin Booker cared and always worked and never, ever stopped adjusting and striving to be great. It's the reason that's tattooed on his arm, folks. And that's all there is. I really just think we got to appreciate the work and the ethic and the passion that Devin Booker brings, because it's hard to see. It's not something you're not going to watch a game and be like, man, that guy has a great work ethic. You're going to be like, wow, he scored 40. Congrats, that's awesome. But he has that. And when you really start to look at his counterparts in his sport and other sports is when you really notice it. Okay, that'll wrap us up. Subscribe to YouTube. Enjoy your weekend. Short week. Hope everybody enjoyed it who has that 9 to 5. I know that I did. I'll be back to my normal schedule next week. Still going 3 days a week. Brandon on Monday. I believe we will have Alex on Friday, and I'm hoping for Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, formerly of Sports Illustrated, to come talk about Ryan McDonough and the tanking and his book on the topic. He wrote a book called Tanking to the Top about that era in the NBA that we all suffered through that we can now laugh at. And he's reported a ton on the Suns. He's talked a lot about Jalen Smith and Thaddeus Young and these rumors all throughout the offseason. So very good stuff. One of the only guys who's gotten stuff right about the Suns at a national level lately. So I'm excited to bring him on. Hopefully we can work that out. But guests galore next week, so look forward to that. And I will talk to you on Monday.